Airport cop racially profiles black woman. Then she exposes she's a senior executive at the airline. Hello everyone, and welcome to a story that will have your emotions swirling and your heart pounding. Picture the hustle and bustle of Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, the constant motion, the blending of faces from all over the world, the excitement and stress of journeys yet to begin. Within that sea of travelers stands one unassuming woman who draws the suspicion of an overzealous airport cop. Little does he know, she's more than meets the eye. She's a senior executive at the very airline he's supposed to protect. What follows is a storm of confrontation, revelation, and the ultimate comeuppance for those blinded by bias. Mornings at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport never lack energy. Under the early sunlight filtering through the tall glass walls, the terminals buzz like a beehive. Families lugging heavy suitcases, business people checking their phones for urgent emails, and flight crews hustling to their gates. Everyone seems propelled by the ticking clock. That surge of motion isn't chaotic so much as orchestrated. Behind the scenes, an army of airport staff and security professionals ensures that each cog in the machine turns as it should. Yet, even in a well-tuned machine, occasional friction emerges. Enter Officer Travis Hensley, who stands near the main security checkpoint, scanning the crowds with an almost predatory intensity. He's in his early 40s, barrel-chested, and has worked at the airport for nearly 2 decades. Over time, Hensley has developed an outsized view of his authority. He thrives on the power trip of ordering passengers around. Colleagues regard him with mixed opinions. Some see him as a dedicated guardian, others as a bully with a badge. A smaller, quieter subset suspects that his motivations are far from impartial. On this particular morning, Hensley's gaze settles on a tall black woman, mid-30s, who seems to radiate a calm composure. Her name is Alyssa Nolan, though the onlooking officer doesn't know that yet. She's dressed in a tailored charcoal blazer, matching slacks, and stylish low heels. There's a subdued polish to her appearance, suggestive of someone who's used to commanding spaces, even if she doesn't trumpet it. Alyssa stands in line to check in for a domestic flight to Chicago, her mind already on a major presentation she's scheduled to give in 2 days. She works for Skyjet Airlines, one of the biggest carriers at Hartsfield-Jackson, and she isn't just any employee, she's a senior executive vice president overseeing operations in multiple regions. Part of her job is to fly frequently to different hubs, ensuring the ground and air teams run like clockwork. But she likes to experience the process as any other passenger, no special fanfare, no skipping lines, so she can observe the real issues, the real pain points. Despite her best efforts to blend in, something about her presence unsettles Officer Hensley. Maybe it's the quiet confidence in how she carries herself. Maybe it's the fact that she's traveling alone, with just a small carry-on. In Hensley's mind, these details set off vague alarms. His subconscious biases have shaped a lens through which he sees certain travelers as automatically more suspicious. And so he decides Alyssa warrants closer inspection. After Alyssa receives her printed boarding pass from an automated kiosk, she heads toward the security line, checking her watch to be sure she's got enough time before her morning meeting with some airline colleagues. She has no clue that Hensley is trailing her from a short distance, watching her every move. Within moments, she hears a sharp voice behind her. "Ma'am, excuse me, would you step aside for a moment, please?" Alyssa pauses, turning around. Her eyes land on Officer Hensley, whose expression remains stern. Other travelers in line glance over, curiosity flitting across their faces, but they shuffle forward to avoid holding up the queue. "Yes, officer?" Alyssa asks calmly, her voice polite but firm. Hensley, arms folded, gestures toward a roped-off area adjacent to the line. "We need to conduct a random security check." Please step this way. At first, Alyssa experiences only mild surprise. She's traveled enough to know random checks happen. She has nothing to hide. She follows him to the side, where he directs her to place her bag on a small metal table and remove her blazer so he can do a pat-down. Is there a specific issue? Alyssa inquires after removing her jacket. She's more curious than intimidated, though she feels the eyes of other passengers on her, which is slightly uncomfortable. Hensley's gaze narrows. "We do random checks," he says curtly. That's all, but from the tightness in his voice, she guesses it's not quite so random. She contemplates letting the matter slide. Time is precious, and she doesn't want an extended confrontation. Still, she offers a friendly smile and cooperates. He runs a handheld scanner over her body, each beep echoing in the quiet space. Then he rummages through her carry-on. Her laptop, a slim folder of documents, and a couple of personal items are all he finds. Nothing suspicious. Yet, he lingers, as though hoping to uncover contraband. "You traveling for business?" he asks abruptly. "Yes, I have meetings in Chicago," Alyssa answers. He gives a slight snort. "Aha. What kind of business you in?" Alyssa raises an eyebrow at the invasive question, but keeps her tone neutral. "Aviation." "I see," he says, closing the carry-on. He seems disappointed at not finding any reason to detain her. "You can go. Just be more mindful about," he pauses, as if unsure how to finish that sentence. "Mindful about what, officer?" Alyssa asks, her curiosity piqued. Hensley just waves his hand dismissively. "Have a good day," he mutters, motioning for her to move on. With that, Alyssa collects her belongings, thanks him tersely, and heads to the security conveyor belt. The entire exchange leaves a bitter taste in her mouth. She's not new to being racially profiled. It's an unfortunate pattern she and many others have faced in various contexts. But she never grows accustomed to the casual disrespect, the quiet insinuations. For a moment, she considers calling out his behavior directly. Yet, she decides to gather more information before acting. She's a senior executive at Skyjet, after all, and her influence could extend far beyond a single scolding. If Officer Hensley is repeatedly targeting minority travelers without cause, that's a serious issue, both ethically and legally. By the time Alyssa makes it through the checkpoint, she's texting her colleague, Maria King, who works in the airline's airport relations department. Maria is an invaluable resource, always up to date on the policies and personalities that shape day-to-day operations at Hartsfield-Jackson. If something's amiss with any staff security or otherwise, Maria would know, or at least know where to look. "Hey, ma'am. Just had a random stop by an officer near main security. Maybe nothing, but his approach was suspicious. Name is Hensley. Know anything?" Within minutes, Maria responds. "He has a bit of a reputation. Some folks have filed unofficial complaints, but nothing formal. Let's talk after your meeting. We can see if we can piece together more info." Alyssa's lips press into a tight line as she reads the text. So her hunch was correct. Hensley's name has come up before. Still, rumors aren't proof. And to fix a problem, you need a solid case. For now, Alyssa directs her attention to her responsibilities. She has an internal interview with a potential managerial candidate and a conference call on gate expansions. But somewhere in the back of her mind, the memory of Hensley's narrowed eyes and abrasive tone lingers like a dark cloud. 2 hours later, Alyssa finds herself in a sleek, glass-walled conference room within the airline's main offices at the airport. Surrounded by her team, she's supposed to finalize a staff reorganization plan that will streamline operations in her division. As she discusses projected timelines and budget allocations, her phone buzzes discreetly. During a break, she checks her messages. Maria wants to meet in the coffee shop in the B concourse. Perfect. Alyssa wraps up the meeting swiftly, instructs her deputy to handle the next steps, and heads out. On her walk across the concourse, She notices travelers hurrying to gates, flight attendants greeting each other, and ground crew scurrying with carts. She can't help but feel proud that her airline is such a significant presence here, yet troubled that an officer's possible racial profiling could tarnish the experience for countless customers. When she arrives at the coffee shop, Maria is already seated at a corner table, a laptop open. She's in her early 30s, with short, curly hair and a welcoming smile that can turn serious in a flash if something's wrong. "Thanks for meeting so quickly," Alyssa says, sliding into a seat and setting her carry-on by her feet. "I really appreciate your help." "Of course," Maria replies. "Anytime. So, Hensley, right? I've got a few notes." Alyssa leans in, listening intently as Maria explains what she's heard through the grapevine. Hensley is known for stopping a disproportionately high number of black and brown travelers. Several people have voiced concerns, but these complaints never seem to get formal traction. Some suspect an internal culture of brotherhood among certain airport cops, where they protect each other from outside scrutiny. "It's not that the entire security team is like this," Maria clarifies. "We've got a lot of good officers, but Hensley stands out in not so positive ways." Alyssa's eyes harden. "I'm not here to ruin careers randomly, but if he's using his position to harass people, that can't stand morally or legally." Maria nods in agreement. "We need concrete evidence for the airport administration. An internal review can be triggered if enough credible complaints surface." Alyssa thinks for a moment. "What if we start by interviewing employees who work around him daily, or passengers who've had issues? I don't want a witch hunt, but if he's consistently singling out minority travelers, that's a liability for the airport and a moral failing for us. I also have some connections with the TSA leads. They might have logs if he's gone beyond normal protocols." Maria agrees wholeheartedly. Before they part, they decide on a plan. They'll collect testimonies discreetly, document any patterns, and present the findings to the airport security administrators, an entity that works independently from the airline but must coordinate with it for all security matters. If that doesn't yield a resolution, they'll escalate to federal authorities, given that racially biased law enforcement is a serious matter. As Alyssa leaves the coffee shop, she can't help but notice Officer Hensley stationed near another checkpoint. He's in conversation with a petite woman wearing a hijab, gesturing in an authoritarian way. The woman looks nervous. Alyssa pauses at a distance, her heart tightening. It appears the same scenario is playing out all over again. She can't step in openly, not yet. She needs a structured approach. But she makes a silent vow to see this through for all who have been subjected to suspicion simply because of how they look. Little does she know how twisted this journey will become, how far Hensley will go to maintain his facade of absolute authority, and how one explosive incident will bring everything to a head, leading to consequences he never anticipated. Over the next few days, Alyssa divides her time between her regular duties and quietly gathering background information about Officer Hensley. After each meeting or conference call, she finds moments to speak with employees who frequent the security zones, staffers who might have witnessed questionable stops or overheard passenger complaints. She discovers that Hensley's name crops up in hushed conversations. A baggage handler mentions hearing a family from Detroit complaining about how Hensley held them up for nearly half an hour, rummaging through their suitcases in public view. A food court worker recalls seeing a young Latino couple pulled aside under similarly flimsy pretenses. These accounts are consistent. Each time, Hensley's rationale was vague and no illegal items were found. Alyssa also reaches out to a mid-level TSA supervisor, Daniel Roy, with whom she's collaborated on operational issues like queue management. Sitting in the TSA office, a sparse room with screens showing various checkpoint cameras, Alyssa broaches the topic carefully. "I've seen some troubling patterns with one of the airport cops. Last name Hensley," she begins. "A few employees have told me he's prone to overstepping. Can you confirm or deny any official records of passenger complaints?" Daniel sighs, running a hand through his short hair. "Off the record, I've heard stories, but we're not his chain of command, so we can't discipline him. All we can do is forward any formal complaints to the airport's internal security administration." "And have there been any formal complaints?" Alyssa asks, leaning forward. "A handful over the years," Daniel acknowledges, opening a digital file on his secure computer. "But each time, the investigating department concluded insufficient evidence. The truth is, we rely heavily on statements from the officer and the passenger, and Hensley is always prepared to justify his stops, calling them random or based on suspicious behavior. Without a smoking gun, it's tough to prove bias." Alyssa frowns. "But if we compile multiple passenger statements showing a pattern?" Daniel shrugs. "That might do it, especially if you can show consistent profiling. But it's an uphill climb. The airport's union is strong, and they don't like their guys being questioned." Alyssa thanks Daniel and leaves with a sense of both clarity and heaviness. The system is stacked in favor of the officer unless compelling evidence arises. She's determined to gather that evidence, but she worries about the timeline. Each day that passes, more travelers might face undue scrutiny or worse. Later that same week, Maria sends an excited text. "We got a passenger who's willing to speak formally." Within hours, Alyssa is on a three-way call with Maria and Jerome Mitchell, a black businessman from Houston who flies frequently to Atlanta. He explains how Hensley stopped him twice in the span of 2 weeks on separate trips. Both times, Hensley asked invasive personal questions: where Jerome was staying, how much cash he carried, despite having no contraband in the luggage or red flags on the scanners. Jerome had felt targeted but hadn't filed a formal complaint, assuming it'd be ignored. "If this helps protect others, I'll come forward," Jerome says. "I'm just sick of being treated like a criminal for no reason." Alyssa thanks him profusely, assuring him the matter will be handled discreetly yet effectively. Having a passenger willing to file a documented complaint is a crucial step. It means if the Airport Security Administration tries to bury this case, they'll have a living, breathing witness who can't be dismissed as a rumor. Meanwhile, Officer Hensley senses a shift in the atmosphere. He notices staffers whispering when he's around. Fewer people greet him warmly. And ironically, his suspicious nature turns inward. He wonders if someone is building a case against him. Yet, he brushes it off with bravado. "I'm just doing my job," he reassures himself. "No one can touch me." But there's a kernel of doubt. One afternoon, while scanning the concourse, he spots Alyssa Nolan speaking with a gate agent. He recognizes her face from the day he stopped her. She's wearing a crisp blouse this time, flipping through some official documents. Something about the way staff talk to her, deferential yet friendly, makes him uneasy. She's clearly of higher status than he first assumed. He recalls the conversation they had. "What kind of business you in?" She had replied, "Aviation," but left it at that. Hensley curses himself for not digging deeper. Could she be some bigwig at the airport or the airline? If so, the ramifications could be severe. Still, he decides to continue business as usual. He's convinced that no one in authority would dare challenge him for fulfilling his duties, especially if he can paint it as a matter of airport security. Alyssa's plan begins to take shape. She gathers passenger testimonies. Jerome stands out for detail, but she compiles others who are willing to speak confidentially. She also documents her own experience. Maria organizes the data, carefully cross-referencing times, dates, and the officer on duty. It forms a disturbing pattern. A disproportionate majority of those singled out by Hensley are black, Latinx, or Muslim travelers, and not once did these stops yield a genuine security threat. They also note something that might be considered a smoking gun. Hensley rarely logs these stops in the official security system. The protocol states that an officer must file a brief report for every search that extends beyond the standard TSA screening, but Hensley either omits the details or lumps them under routine check. This administrative negligence could be his Achilles heel. With a robust file of evidence, Alyssa requests a formal meeting with the head of the airport's security administration, Captain Ernest Fletcher, a man known for upholding discipline, but also for being wary of accusations leveled against his officers. Through an internal contact, she manages to set a meeting for the following Tuesday. But tension simmers. If Hensley catches wind that a meeting is scheduled about him, he might attempt to retaliate or manipulate his logs to cover his tracks. Time is critical. Alyssa and Maria keep their circles tight, involving only those absolutely necessary. They plan to drop the evidence on Fletcher's desk in one sweeping move, minimizing the chance of a leak. Amid this, Alyssa juggles her own demanding role at Skyjet Airlines. She's negotiating a major route expansion, planning a new lounge in Terminal F, and interviewing candidates to fill key managerial spots. She navigates these responsibilities with skill, but a deeper emotional weight clings to her. Memories of her own experiences with prejudice being followed in stores, questioned about her seat in first class resurface. She spent years rising above the negativity, proving her competence in the corporate world. Now, she sees an opportunity to stand up, not just for herself, but for every passenger who's been demeaned by misuse of authority. Nights become restless. She finds herself awake at 2 a.m., reviewing statements, ensuring all details align. She's aware that formal complaints can sometimes descend into messy, she said fights, especially if Hensley has powerful allies. But quitting is not in her DNA. She steels herself. This is worth it. If I have the leverage to help fix a broken system, I should use it. 2 days before the scheduled meeting with Captain Fletcher, Alyssa receives a surprise visitor, Officer Naomi Jefferson, a young black female officer who's part of the same security force as Hensley. Naomi arrives at Alyssa's office door, appearing a bit nervous. "Ma'am, do you have a moment?" she asks. "Of course." Alyssa gestures for her to come in. She closes her laptop and offers Naomi a seat. "I've heard that you might be looking into some issues with Officer Hensley." Naomi begins hesitantly. "I don't want to get in trouble, but there are things you should know." Alyssa listens, encouraging Naomi to speak freely. She learns that Naomi has personally witnessed Hensley mock certain passengers after they walk away and manipulate documentation about why he stopped them. She also hints that she tried raising a concern with her direct supervisor, but it was brushed aside. She felt powerless until she heard rumors that someone important from Skyjet Airlines was investigating him. Alyssa thanks Naomi, reassuring her that her testimony could be pivotal, but only if she's comfortable speaking to the higher-ups. Naomi hesitates. "I'm worried about retaliation," she admits. Alyssa leans forward, sincerity in her eyes. "I understand. I can't promise it won't be stressful. But we need voices from the inside to make sure this is taken seriously. Otherwise, it might be swept under the rug again." After a moment of deliberation, Naomi nods. "I'll do it. People shouldn't be harassed. That's not why I joined this job." Alyssa feels gratitude surge through her. Having an officer willing to corroborate the pattern of misconduct from inside the security force is exactly the kind of evidence that's often missing. She takes notes on everything Naomi shares, ensuring they'll incorporate it into the file for Captain Fletcher. By the weekend, the stage is set. Alyssa, Maria, and a small group of confidants have built a strong case. Naomi's inside perspective and Jerome's formal complaint give the file a serious weight. Captain Fletcher's meeting is locked in for Tuesday morning. It promises to be a pivotal moment. But as fate would have it, the carefully orchestrated confrontation might come sooner than they think. Circumstances beyond Alyssa's control are about to propel Hensley into direct conflict with her again, igniting a dramatic showdown in the middle of the airport, one that will leave no question about his intentions and no doubt about her resolve. For now, Alyssa tries to rest, reminding herself she has done everything right, documented evidence, found corroborating witnesses, compiled a thorough report. Yet, she can't shake the feeling that Hensley might attempt something desperate if he realizes his career is on the line. She braces for the unexpected, hoping her status and position will protect her from the worst. But nothing can fully shield someone when prejudice, power, and fear collide in a public space, especially not at the busiest airport in the world. Tuesday is still 2 days away, but Alyssa finds herself needing to catch a last-minute flight on Sunday morning to Dallas. A top-tier client unexpectedly requested an in-person discussion about a partnership deal, and Alyssa can't refuse. She figures she'll be back by Monday afternoon, just in time to finalize preparations for the meeting with Captain Fletcher. She arrives at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport around 6 a.m., the sky outside tinged with a pale orange glow. Even at this early hour, the terminal bustles. Dragging her compact roller bag, she walks briskly to the Skyjet check-in counter. She's wearing a simple yet professional outfit, a burgundy blouse, dark slacks, and low heels. Her ID badge rests discreetly in her purse. She only flashes it when absolutely necessary, preferring to experience the airport as any passenger would. Unknown to her, Officer Hensley also has an early shift. He's stationed at the domestic security checkpoint near Concourse C. The instant he spots Alyssa in the crowd, someone he vaguely recalls but can't quite place unease ripples through his gut. He vaguely remembers stopping her weeks ago. His memory is hazy, yet he recalls that something about their interaction bothered him. She had been too composed, too confident. As Alyssa finishes checking in and heads to the security line, Hensley steps away from a conversation with a fellow officer. He drifts toward the queue like a predator circling its prey. She doesn't see him yet, busy rummaging in her purse for her phone and boarding pass. Within minutes, Alyssa reaches the front of the queue. She places her bag and laptop on the conveyor belt, gliding through the body scanner without issue. But as she moves to collect her belongings, Hensley appears at her side. "You, ma'am," he says, voice gruff. "I need you to come with me for additional screening." Alyssa's heart sinks. Again, she glances at him, recognition dawning. It's the same officer from before. Officer Hensley, correct? His eyes widen slightly, as though surprised she knows his name. "Yes," he replies stiffly. "This is a random spot check. Step aside." Travelers behind Alyssa exchange puzzled looks. A couple of them, who've also faced random checks, roll their eyes. One woman whispers to her companion that it looks anything but random. Alyssa steels herself, deciding to stay calm. "May I ask the reason for this check?" she inquires politely, though an undercurrent of tension thrums in her voice. Hensley's stare intensifies. "Security reasons. That's all you need to know." Alyssa contemplates pressing further. She's quite aware that no legitimate cause exists. Her scan was clear. But she also realizes that a public showdown could turn chaotic. She's about to quietly comply when a fellow officer, Officer Grant, approaches. "Hey, Hensley," Grant says, scanning the situation. She cleared the scanner. We're low on staff right now, so maybe later. Hensley cuts him off. No. She's flagged for additional screening. End of story. His tone leaves no room for discussion, and Grant retreats with a look of uncertainty. Please follow me, Hensley orders. He leads Alyssa to a small partitioned area near the checkpoint. A short line of passengers, also singled out, waits for pat-downs. Alyssa stands quietly, her mind racing. She can't ignore the suspicion that this is personal, an act of intimidation. When it's Alyssa's turn, Hensley insists on performing the pat-down himself, rather than deferring to a female officer, the usual protocol for a female passenger. Alyssa tenses, but goes through with it to avoid a scene. The pat-down is methodical but unnecessarily intrusive. She notices how Hensley keeps eye contact, as if testing her reaction. She remains outwardly stoic, heart hammering with anger beneath her cool facade. The search of her belongings is equally thorough. Hensley opens her wallet, flipping through receipts and business cards. He picks up a corporate ID card with the Skyjet logo, reading her name and title. Alyssa Nolan, Senior Executive Vice President. For a flicker of a second, confusion crosses his features, maybe even fear, but he quickly adopts an air of defiance. "You're an executive at Skyjet, huh?" he says, loud enough for a few onlookers to hear. "That doesn't exempt you from a security check." Alyssa's jaw tightens. "I've never claimed exemption, officer," she replies evenly. "But I do object to unnecessary harassment." He tenses. The word harassment is a red flag, and he knows it. "That's a bold accusation," he says. "If you cooperate, we won't have any issues." Alyssa fixes him with a level gaze. "I'm cooperating. But let's be clear, this is twice now, with no factual basis. I'm well aware of my rights, and I know the airport's security protocols intimately." A spark of recognition flares in Hensley's eyes. Suddenly, her face from that day a few weeks back merges with the ID card he's just read. She's not just any passenger, she's a high-level figure in one of the airport's largest airlines. A swirl of panic, pride, and anger seizes him. If she's investigating him, or if she has influence over the airport's administration, she could become a serious threat to his job. In his mind, the best defense is a strong offense. He finishes rifling through her bag, then steps in front of her, blocking her path back to the terminal. "I'm going to have to detain you for further questioning," he blurts. Alyssa blinks, stunned. "Detain me? On what grounds?" A few bystanders start paying closer attention. One even discreetly raises a phone, apparently recording the interaction. "We've had some suspicious activity reported in the terminal, and you fit a description," Hensley states, his voice hollow with invention. Alyssa's disbelief morphs into anger. "Officer, you can't do this. You have no probable cause, no real suspicion. I work for Skyjet, one of the main stakeholders in this airport's entire operation. I'm warning you, you're crossing a line." In that instant, a surge of adrenaline overshadows Hensley's better judgment, possibly triggered by fear of being exposed, or perhaps by the ugly sense of power he holds. He doubles down. "I'll decide who's suspicious," he snaps, voice rising. "If you resist, that's on you." At this point, the commotion draws more onlookers. A small circle forms around the roped-off area, passengers casting anxious glances. Some seem outraged on Alyssa's behalf. Others remain uncertain, not wanting to intervene. One man in a business suit steps forward. "Officer, I've been watching this," he says. "She passed the scanner fine. You can't just detain her out of nowhere." "Stay out of it," Hensley barks, hand resting near his holster. "We're handling official security business." Alyssa realizes the situation is teetering on the verge of escalation. She knows confronting an officer in front of a crowd can be risky, especially if he feels threatened. "Look," she begins, taking a calming breath. "I'm not resisting. I'm simply stating this is an unlawful detainment. Let me call the airport's security administration or my corporate liaison. We can settle this. No calls until I say so, Hensley hisses. Hand over your phone. Alyssa's eyes widen. This is full on intimidation. That's not happening, she replies, her voice laced with quiet resolve. I have every right to keep my belongings unless you have a legitimate warrant. It's a high-stakes standoff. The onlookers murmur, a couple of them filming openly now. If Hensley forcibly takes her phone, that might cross a threshold from mere harassment into potential assault. The tension is thick enough to taste. Suddenly, another officer rushes in Officer Grant again, accompanied by a senior supervisor, Sergeant Kelly Rogers. They assess the situation, a high-ranking airline executive cornered by Hensley in front of filming passengers. Rogers steps forward, her expression urgent. Hensley, what are you doing? Rogers demands, tone brisk. She's resisting a lawful order, Hensley protests, though his voice wavers slightly. Rogers looks at Alyssa, who stands tall, holding her phone close. Miss Nolan, I'm Sergeant Rogers. Let's all calm down. Is there a particular reason we've escalated this to a detention? Alyssa replies, No, I passed security. I have my boarding pass. I've done nothing to trigger suspicion. Yet Officer Hensley claims I match some vague description. He tried to confiscate my phone. This is beyond procedure. Sergeant Rogers' brows knit in concern. Officer Hensley, step aside. Now, her tone carries authority, leaving no room for debate. He gives a final glare at Alyssa, then steps back begrudgingly. Rogers checks with Officer Grant about what they witnessed. Grant quietly confirms Alyssa cleared the scanner with no anomalies. Meanwhile, the filming passengers keep capturing every moment, and some are even narrating on social media live streams unbeknownst to the group. Seeing his overreach exposed, Hensley tries to save face. I was following up on a tip, he claims. She seemed to be in a hurry, looked suspicious. She's on the VIP list, for heaven's sake, Rogers says, exasperated. She's a senior Skyjet executive. Even if she weren't, you have no evidence of wrongdoing. This is not how we conduct ourselves. Alyssa finally exhales a breath she didn't realize she was holding. She can sense the anger simmering under her composure, but she focuses on diffusing the situation. Sergeant, I appreciate your intervention. May I leave now to catch my flight? I have a business commitment in Dallas. Rogers nods apologetically. Yes, Miss Nolan. You're free to go, and I'm very sorry for the inconvenience. She throws a pointed look at Hensley, who scowls. With that, Alyssa gathers her things and walks away, her entire body trembling from the confrontation. A cluster of onlookers moves aside to let her pass, and a few quietly murmur words of support. She doesn't linger to chat, though. She wants to get on her flight, maintain her professional composure. But inside, she's seething. This time, it's no mere rumor or second-hand complaint. She's experienced a blatant abuse of power, and there's clear footage of it out in the public sphere. As soon as Alyssa boards her plane, she switches her phone to airplane mode, grateful for a moment's respite. Her mind churns through the events, the humiliating pat-down, Hensley's attempt to confiscate her phone, the brazen attempt to detain her. It's beyond personal now. This is a threat to any passenger who crosses Hensley's path. She types a quick email to Maria and a few key executives, subject line, urgent, Officer Hensley incident. She outlines what happened, noting that video evidence likely exists from bystanders. Her rage fuels her words, but she keeps them composed and factual. She also reiterates the upcoming Tuesday meeting with Captain Fletcher, emphasizing that the matter has escalated to an alarming level. By the time the flight takes off, Alyssa's adrenaline is still spiking. She forces herself to breathe, reminding herself that she did nothing wrong. She wonders if the airline's lawyers might get involved. Perhaps they should. She also can't help but suspect that Hensley realized her position and tried to corner her before she could act against him. If so, he just delivered the final blow to his own career. Little does she know how massive the fallout will be once the footage spreads. By the time she lands in Dallas, half a dozen social media posts featuring the confrontation have gone viral. Overnight, the story will explode beyond the confines of the airport's internal channels, forcing a reckoning that can't be swept under the rug. The fuse is lit, and the powder keg is about to blow. Alyssa steps off her plane in Dallas, unaware that her Sunday morning altercation is already making waves online. While she was in flight, multiple passengers who recorded the incident posted their videos on Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube. Clips show Hensley confronting her, insisting on detaining her for suspicious behavior and ignoring the more measured approach from his fellow officers. By the time Alyssa checks into her hotel and switches her phone out of airplane mode, a barrage of notifications flood in texts, emails, missed calls. She opens one text from Maria. "We have a situation. Videos of your encounter are trending. Media outlets have started calling, wanting statements. Captain Fletcher reached out. He wants an urgent meeting." Stunned, Alyssa scrolls through social media on her phone. Hashtags like hashtag airport profiling and hashtag Hartsfield incident are picking up traction. The top posts label Hensley's behavior as racially motivated and highlight Alyssa's position at the airline for maximum shock value. The anger is palpable in the comments section, with people demanding accountability and tagging official airport handles. A swirl of conflicting emotions hits her: embarrassment that the ugly incident is so public, relief that the world sees it for what it is, and concern about how this might affect the airline and the airport's reputation. She calls Maria first. "Alyssa, I'm so sorry this blew up," Maria says, voice crackling over the phone. On the plus side, we now have undeniable proof. On the minus side, the entire internet is asking for heads to roll, and the airport administration is in panic mode. Alyssa's mind races. What's the official stance from the airline so far? "We put out a brief statement that we're aware of the incident involving a Skyjet executive and are cooperating with airport authorities. But the PR team wants to talk to you about the next steps. Also, Captain Fletcher wants that meeting moved up. He called me personally." "All right," Alyssa says, drawing a steadying breath. "I'm in Dallas for a day or two, but we can set up a virtual call. Let's get Fletcher on the line tomorrow morning. I'll do my best to wrap things up here quickly and return to Atlanta by Monday night." They finalize details, and Alyssa ends the call, sinking onto the edge of the hotel bed. Even though this widespread exposure is uncomfortable, it might be the very catalyst that ensures real change. If the airport tries to protect Hensley, public uproar will make that impossible. She steels herself for the whirlwind of media coverage, determined not to be cowed by it. Meanwhile, at Hartsfield-Jackson's main administrative offices, Captain Ernest Fletcher grapples with a crisis. He had planned to review Alyssa's evidence quietly on Tuesday, but the viral videos have altered the timeline. His phone keeps buzzing with questions from local news stations, national media, and even international outlets that see a sensational story in airport cop versus airline executive. Fletcher summons Major Amanda Liu, who oversees internal affairs investigations, to his office. They watch one of the viral videos together. In the grainy footage, Hensley stands face to face with Alyssa, refusing to let her pass. Alyssa's calm voice resonates. "I have every right to keep my belongings unless you have a warrant." Then Hensley tries to justify detaining her, and bystanders murmur in disbelief. Major Liu exhales sharply after the video ends. "That's bad, really bad," Fletcher nods grimly. "We were going to look into him anyway. Now the public wants immediate action. We can't bury this. Major Liu flips through a folder of preliminary notes. We have passenger complaints going back several years, but none were as high profile as this. And now we have confirmation, miss. Nolan was preparing a dossier of her own about him. This is going to blow wide open. Fletcher leans back in his chair, the weight of the situation pressing down. We have no choice but to suspend him pending a formal investigation. Publicly, we'll promise a thorough review. Let's coordinate with Miss Nolan. She's a key witness now. Major Liu nods. Understood. I'll draft the suspension order. Should I also reach out to the union? Fletcher rubs his temples. Yes, let them know. Expect a fight. But we can't back down. This is too big for hush-hush deals. As Liu leaves, Fletcher's gaze drifts to the city skyline, visible from his window. How did we get here? He wonders. Then he remembers, unaddressed misconduct doesn't just vanish. It accumulates until it erupts in the worst way possible. In stark contrast, Officer Travis Hensley lurks in his modest apartment on the outskirts of Atlanta, glued to social media streams about the fiasco. His phone dings relentlessly, some messages from co-workers telling him to lay low, others from acquaintances who want his side of the story. He's half enraged, half terrified. This is bull, he mutters, pacing. He calls a close friend on the force, who warns him that suspension is almost certain. They can't do that, Hensley protests, voice shaking. I was doing my job. Look, man. The video looks bad, his friend replies. You singled her out and tried to take her phone. She's an airline exec. The public is out for blood. Hensley slams a fist onto his kitchen counter. Let 'em talk. They don't know the threats I face daily. Someone acts suspicious. I gotta act. Keep your head down, his friend advises. Talk to the union rep. Maybe they can get you a fair hearing. Hensley ends the call, his heart pounding. They want to fire me over this? A survival instinct flares. Maybe he can drum up a story about a genuine tip-off. Claim there was intel about a woman matching Alyssa's description, smuggling contraband. But the viral videos contradict any notion that he had legitimate intel. He's cornered. The real question is whether he'll lash out in desperation or accept the inevitable. The next morning, Monday, Alyssa dials into a secure video conference from her Dallas hotel room. On the screen are Captain Fletcher, Major Liu, Maria, and 2 members of Skyjet's legal team. Tension is palpable. The call begins with Fletcher apologizing to Alyssa on behalf of the airport staff. I want you to know this is being taken very seriously, Fletcher says, voice somber. Officer Hensley has been placed on administrative leave pending an investigation. We'd appreciate any additional evidence you can provide. Alyssa's expression remains composed. Thank you, Captain. I do have a compiled report of witness statements and passenger testimonies about Officer Hensley's pattern of targeting minority travelers. I was planning to present it at our Tuesday meeting. Obviously, recent events have made it even more urgent. She outlines the key points, occasionally referencing PDF files that Maria shares on screen. They show how Hensley's random stops rarely follow standard procedure, how complaints consistently disappeared into bureaucratic voids, and how data suggests a glaring racial disparity in his stops. Fletcher and Liu exchange a look that reeks of grim understanding. It appears we have a deep-rooted issue, Fletcher concedes. We'll escalate this to the full Internal Affairs Unit for a formal inquiry. Given the public outcry, we can't rule out external audits either. Skyjet's lawyers pipe in. Our airline has zero tolerance for discriminatory practices, whether from our employees or from law enforcement we partner with. Nolan is prepared to cooperate with any lawful investigation, but we also expect transparency in return. Major Liu nods. We'll keep you informed at every step. In the meantime, Miss Nolan, we ask you not to speak to the media beyond general statements. We don't want the investigation compromised. Alyssa agrees, though she knows reporters are circling like hawks. In truth, she doesn't relish the media spotlight. She simply wants justice for herself and for every passenger who's been subjected to Hensley's harmful behavior. As they wrap up, Fletcher assures them that an emergency press conference is scheduled for later in the day. The airport's official line: "We are conducting a thorough investigation into allegations of officer misconduct," and the officer in question is suspended. After the call, Alyssa stares at her reflection in the hotel mirror. She feels a measure of relief. The system is responding. But she also feels the weight of leadership. Her actions have initiated a chain reaction that could change how security is handled at Hartsfield-Jackson. This is bigger than one cop losing his job. It's about instituting checks and balances, so no one can wield authority as a weapon of prejudice. That afternoon, Captain Fletcher stands at a podium in a press briefing room within the airport. Cameras flash. Reporters crowd forward. He reads a statement denouncing any form of racial profiling, confirming that Officer Travis Hensley has been placed on leave. In the wings, the airport's union representative, Thomas Richter, listens with a stony face. Once Fletcher finishes, Richter steps up to proclaim Hensley's innocence, claiming the videos don't show the full context. He hints that Hensley received credible intelligence about a suspicious individual matching Alyssa's description. Reporters pounce on that claim. Where is this intelligence? Why didn't any other officer mention it? Richter dodges specifics, promising to reveal more in the official investigation. The tension escalates. Observers note the half-baked nature of the union's defense. It feels more like a stalling tactic than a genuine explanation. Over the following 24 hours, public sentiment grows more heated. Alyssa's name trends alongside calls for deeper scrutiny into airport security. Racial justice groups weigh in, praising Alyssa for speaking out. Cynics question why an airline executive is only stepping up now that it happened to her. Alyssa reads these criticisms, acknowledging the validity behind them. Many have endured similar or worse experiences for years without the platform she has. Regardless, the wheels of accountability are turning. Inside the airport, officers whisper that Hensley's downfall was inevitable. Others resent Alyssa, accusing her of using her power to ruin a longtime cop. But more and more, staff come forward to share their experiences, reinforcing the truth. Hensley's conduct was anything but honorable. By Monday evening, Alyssa manages to resolve her business in Dallas and flies back to Atlanta. She's greeted by a cluster of reporters at baggage claim, peppering her with questions. She offers a concise statement: "I trust the ongoing investigation to address these issues. I have no further comment at this time." Security escorts her out of the public area to an airport office. Maria is there waiting, relief and concern etched on her face. "You okay?" she asks. Alyssa exhales. "Yes, just tired. How's everything on our end?" Maria offers a tired smile. Pressure is on, but the evidence is overwhelming. Internal Affairs is fast-tracking the investigation. The main hearing could be scheduled within days, not weeks. Alyssa nods. She's ready. Hensley's attempt to forcibly detain her, caught on camera, might be the final nail in his coffin, but she knows the hearing is crucial for an official verdict. And if, somehow, the system tries to shield him, public anger won't let it. As she leaves the airport, passing the familiar concourse, her gaze briefly lands on the spot where Hensley tried to confiscate her phone. Never again, she thinks. No one should have to endure that kind of abuse, whether an airline executive or an everyday passenger. The stage is set for a final reckoning, one that will decide not only Hensley's fate, but also the integrity of the entire security apparatus at one of the world's busiest airports. 3 days later, Alyssa steps into a windowless conference room within Hartsfield-Jackson's administrative offices. The scene feels almost like a courtroom. A long table at the front for the internal affairs panel, smaller tables for the accused and any witnesses, and a handful of onlookers, airport administrators, union representatives, and lawyers. Officer Travis Hensley sits rigidly across from them, his union lawyer by his side. At the head of the table, Major Amanda Liu reads from a file. Officer Hensley, you stand accused of racial profiling, improper searches, and unlawful attempts to detain. We have video evidence and multiple statements. Please be aware that this panel's decision will determine the status of your employment. Hensley glowers, avoiding Alyssa's gaze. She's seated with her colleague, Maria, and an airline attorney, Renee Collins. The tension is palpable. Alyssa can almost feel Hensley's resentment radiating across the room. Major Liu begins by displaying snippets of viral videos, Hensley ordering Alyssa to hand over her phone, threatening to detain her without cause, and ignoring standard protocols. Several bystanders' statements follow, describing similarly unjust stops. This is capped off by data logs revealing that Hensley failed to file proper reports for many secondary checks and that over 3/4 of his stops involved Black, Latino, or Muslim travelers. Hensley's lawyer tries to deflect. Correlations do not prove bias, and an officer must act on instinct. But the panel remains unmoved when Officer Naomi Jefferson testifies that she personally witnessed. Hensley ignore guidelines, mock travelers, and log falsified reasons for additional checks. Sergeant Kelly Rogers then recounts how she intervened during Alyssa's confrontation, finding no legitimate basis for Hensley's actions. Every piece of evidence ties into an undeniable pattern. When it's Alyssa's turn to speak, she remains poised. I never sought an altercation, she says, voice firm. I was traveling for work, yet I was singled out twice, culminating in an attempt to confiscate my phone. This is not mere vigilance, it's abuse of authority. Hensley briefly breaks his silence, hurling accusations of a set-up and claiming that Alyssa leveraged her airline status to destroy him. The panel demands calm, noting that the footage and witness testimonies contradict his narrative. With each new reveal, Hensley's defense grows weaker. Even his union lawyer appears resigned. After a short recess, Major Liu announces the verdict. Officer Hensley, we find sufficient evidence of gross misconduct and racial profiling. Effective immediately, you are terminated from your position at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport. She adds that the airport will forward findings to federal authorities in case civil rights violations warrant further action. A hush falls. Hensley's face contorts with rage. He glares at Alyssa, blaming her for the collapse of his career. His lawyer quietly ushers him out, but not before the union representative mutters a promise to appeal. The tension dissipates only when they exit. Alyssa exhales a trembling breath, relief mingled with sadness. She knows no one truly wins in such a scenario, but accountability was necessary. Maria squeezes Alyssa's hand, her eyes shining with gratitude. Within hours, news spreads that Hensley has been fired for misconduct. Public response explodes. Some praise Alyssa's stand against injustice. Others condemn the officer's conduct, demanding broader reforms. The airport issues a follow-up statement promising more rigorous bias training and a fresh review of internal complaint procedures. Days later, as Alyssa prepares for another business trip, she passes through the same security checkpoint without incident. She notices an updated system for random checks. Passengers are flagged by a computerized method, ensuring true randomness and clearer documentation. Officers calmly explain the process to each traveler, reflecting a shift toward greater transparency. At the boarding gate, Alyssa glances at her phone. There's an email from Naomi Jefferson thanking her for exposing problems that once seemed untouchable. Naomi adds that she and her colleagues are committed to rebuilding trust in airport security, one passenger at a time. Alyssa smiles, typing a brief reply, "Stay strong. We're all part of making this place safer and fairer." When her flight is called, she boards with a lighter heart. Though the struggle to eradicate discrimination continues, at least one pocket of injustice has been addressed. That knowledge fuels Alyssa's determination to keep fighting for a world where authority is wielded responsibly and every traveler can walk through an airport free from harassment or bias. Thank you so much for experiencing this powerful story of confrontation, courage, and ultimate justice. We saw how Alyssa Nolan, once profiled by an overzealous airport cop, turned the tables through determination and solid evidence. In the midst of viral videos and public outrage, she exposed a pattern of bias that had too long remained hidden. Her brave stand led not only to one officer's dismissal, but also to real changes in how security is managed at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport. If this story resonated with you, if it stirred your sense of right and wrong, please like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel for more gripping tales of justice, redemption, and real-life lessons. Don't forget to ring the notification bell so you never miss our latest uploads. Together, let's champion fairness, dignity, and equality for everyone, everywhere. Safe travels, and see you next time.